one of the things I hate about going to the movies, Jacob, is whenever people like applaud in the movie and stuff like that.
I agree.
Like when people cheer when a certain character comes on the screen. Like, it would be different if you were at like the live premiere of the movie and the people that worked on the movie were in the theater. It would be different if you would applaud them. But like, especially with like an animated movie where it's just like, oh, that was a wonderful movie. It's like, don't clap. They can't hear you. They're animated. They don't care. Stop it. Stop ruining my experience because you're like, oh God. Welcome to the podcast, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Dale. I am joined by our special guest, Jacob. Jacob, say how you're doing.
How are you doing?
I hate him. I hate him with a fiery passion. Jacob, you wanna tell the listeners what we went and watched yesterday?
Incredibles 2.
Incredibles 2. And I'm not going to make the pun. I refuse. Jacob, don't. I'm looking at you. No. I can see you cracking the smile. Stop it. No, I will mute your mic. I will mute your mic right now.
It was incredible.
No! Okay. Anyway, back to the topic at hand. Yeah, puns aside, it was a very good movie. I would watch it again. I mean, I did yesterday. I watched it Friday with my girlfriend, and then I watched it again with Nathan and Jacob. And both times the theater was like crazy packed too.
So far, it has done $110 million going into the day 2 of the weekend.
Golly.
It is on track to beat Finding Dory for most money made on opening weekend by an animated film.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. So let's get some stats in there. Actors, directors, any other stats.
Most of the top cast returning, Craig T. Nelson, Bob Parr, Holly Hunter playing Helen Parr, the same actors for Violet and Dash, Sarah Vowell and Huck Minier. Like I said about the money made, it had $110 going into the weekend. It's predicted to break out. It's predicted to beat out what Finding Dory did, $135 in its opening weekend. Both very anticipated Pixar sequels.
And directed by Brad Bird. Has a pretty good track record for the most part. I haven't really watched a movie by him I've been disappointed by. But then again, the only ones I really know of are the first two Incredibles, and then like Tomorrowland was okay. It wasn't exactly like a phenomenal thing, but it was all right. Who was the composer for the soundtrack?
One second, I'll find it. It wasn't the same one, I believe.
Okay, we're gonna do the first half of this podcast relatively spoiler free, and then we'll get into spoilers as new releases come on. So for the most part, the plot of this movie, it followed right after the first, like, end scene of first movie is the beginning of Incredibles 2. Mm-hmm. And so there's not really that much of a time gap. And the plot of this movie is less of saving superhuman society and more of re-legalize superheroes, and then also learn how to become a good parent if you've never done the parenting thing before.
I feel like I wish I could have a breakdown of it now. I'm sure at some point I could find it, but how much of the movie was actually just devoted to Bob Parr as a parent?
Yeah, and like him being like since he spent 15 years working like what I assume is a 8 to 5 job every week, and like maybe even Saturdays. He never really got the chance to be a dad.
Yeah,
and now he's having to be a dad.
It even makes a point to say a point at the beginning of the movie to he's been the one working, for the past 15 years while Helen's, been the one taking care of the kids. And she's like, well, it's my turn to work and you can, get to be a father. Something I noticed in the movie, she specifically says get to be a father because, he's been wanting to be. He's just been stuck working lovely insurance.
Yeah. One of the most
another
respectable jobs in the entire world, being insurance care. Let's go ahead and talk about first impressions going into the movie. What did you think when you before you watched the movie, Jacob? Before you went into it?
Oh, just all hype, of course. All hype,
Like, how old were you when Incredibles 1 came out?
14 years ago, I would have been some math. 8 years old, I believe.
Yeah, 8 or 9.
7 or 8 or 9, somewhere around that.
We were little kids when it came out.
I don't remember watching Incredibles in theater. I may have. I don't remember. I know, like we were talking about earlier, I had the DVD set that Disney came out with for the Incredibles that had all the side information. I remember reading through about all the different heroes in the Incredible universe, and I was really infatuated with the concept of it. That was before the whole Marvel movies were a big thing.
It was before the superhero boom.
That was superheroes was really cool to me back then. It wasn't there was no fatigue in it, the industry at all. I remember really being fascinated by the movie back in the day.
And it was kind of the fact that it almost parodied the superhero trope beforehand, because of all the talk of catching villains monologuing and all the stereotypes that a superhero has to go through, like when Frozone and Mr. Incredible are in the car talking about old battles nonchalantly, and it's he starts monologuing. And it's it's just the common things superheroes have to deal with when they're fighting supervillains.
Almost like water cooler talking in the office, just between two superheroes, yeah.
And so it was showing you the casual part of that world. It was a unique twist on that. My first impression going in the movie, obviously, again, a lot of hype. It was I'm kind of a sucker for superhero genre. And I love everything having to do with the superhero genre, and I have since I was a young child, and I think it actually started with Incredibles and stuff like that. Just my fascination with superheroes and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And I just when Incredibles 2 was announced, I kind of I think I had an audible squee when I first saw the trailer.
Well, I'm sure everyone's seen the meme going around. It's this ain't for the kids. This is our movie.
Yeah.
All the young adults now who grew up with Incredibles.
Mm-hmm.
This is for us, man. We waited for this. I think another thing, just talking about coming into the movie, with Pixar, there's always some sense of when you're revamping a series that was beloved to you when you were younger, some sense of fear. You don't want the sequel to bastardize the originals in a way, to where, but Pixar has a good track record, but you're just still, part of you is just worried
you were worried when Toy Story 3 first came out because there was such a gap between 3 and 2. You were worried,
and now we've had kind of you were saying with Toy Story 3 Finding Dory, we have those sequels to go off of to show us some, I guess, somewhat hey, it's going to be a good movie, even if it's not as good as the original, it's going to be good.
And I feel we should have had more trust in Pixar, really, because it's kind of a built-in thing to be afraid of a sequel, but also we need to start getting to that point where we can pick those developers and movie makers we can trust, and Pixar for the most part has an almost spotless track record.
Other than I'd say the Cars sequels.
Yeah, there's one or two movies that I can think of off the top of my head that just they're hit and miss, but for the most part, Pixar has a really, really good track record, and they're one of the companies you can trust. Mm-hmm. And so, what was your experience watching the movie?
I mean, are we going in depth yet, or just general?
We're at about the 15-minute mark. We'll get into spoilers, but like,
Okay.
what did
Just
you feel
general
watching
takeaway?
Yeah, general takeaway.
I mean, it had that same sense, like you said. It picks right off from the old movie, so like that's the only part of the movie I feel like maybe couldn't be enjoyed as a standalone, is because it really does drop you right in from where the other one leaves off, like the exact scene, and it just really builds on that emotion from your childhood. It's
the nostalgia.
But and then it does go on to become its own movie, and the animation's just beautiful. The cinematics of all of the fight scenes, and
it shows you how far we've come in animation.
Yeah,
like compared to
just small little things here and there.
If you compare both movies side by side, both their idle animation and their walking animation and their shot composition is really good. But you can see the difference in the 14-year gap. Like, this is what we could do 14 years ago. This is what we can do now. Mm-hmm. And it's more fluid. It's more crisp. A lot of minor facial details that you couldn't do in animation beforehand, you can do now.
And a lot of that was put on display with Jack Jack. I think. Jack, the just small spoiler, it has a lot more screen time, this movie. I feel like he was a fan favorite in the original, even though he only had, maybe 2 minutes of actual screen time in it.
Yeah.
They came out with the short later on that was his huge
I think
success.
he was... Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt
No,
you.
you're fine.
I think he might have been a fan favorite simply because with all the other characters, you knew what their defined superpower was. Jack Jack was a blank slate that could have been anything.
Exactly.
And you're just trying to narrow down what he can be, and you're just... he's so cool.
No more narrowing down this movie. They added more stuff, if anything else.
I mean, I think that's supposed to go off his name being the jack of all trades type of thing.
And they even go to say, because he's talking to Lucius about, did your other kids like this? He's like, no, not even close. No.
And I think it really does play into the whole... You've seen the whole, the reason they're named what their name theory is, right? So do the parents come up with the name as their powers develop, or do they come up with the name
Well, fun fact for you, Dash's actual name is Daniel.
Oh.
That's actually canon. Fun fact for you.
No, it's Dashel.
Dashel, that's it. Sorry,
Dashel.
Dashel. But so he wasn't originally named Dash. That was
They just call him Dash for short. It's Dashel. Yeah. And maybe his name was Daniel, but as he got the super speed, they changed it to Dashel.
Oh, it is Dashel. You are right. I was mistaken with that. But
and then Violet, she's named that way because she can bend ultraviolet rays to make her look invisible or generate force fields with them. And so Jack is named that because he's the jack of all trades.
That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a little thing you didn't know about. So, when I went into this movie, again, I was super excited because superheroes, they're cool to me. And I didn't know what to expect because the trailers didn't really tell us a lot. They didn't give us a definite timeline. All the scenes you saw of Elastigirl wearing her costume in the trailer, those could have been past clips.
That's what I was thinking too. They did really well at not giving away the plot.
And they didn't show who the villain was at all in the trailer.
Which we did realize halfway through the movie, oh hey, this character's getting a lot of screen time that wasn't in a trailer.
Yeah.
Huh.
And they did a really good job of not spoiling the movie at all. I remember when the first trailer came out, that there were all these theory videos. It was just and none of the theories were correct. They were all completely wrong.
Well, I think a lot of it revolved around everyone thinking Underminer was going to be the main villain, and he's in it for
because the Incredibles video game,
5-10 minutes at the beginning, right?
There's an Incredibles video game where you play as Mr. Incredible and Frozone, and you fight the Underminer, and everyone thought that was going to be the plot. And then the Screenslaver was going to be a side character, or an accomplice or something like that. So they did a really good job of not spoiling the movie and keeping it a surprise. The villain was a little bit predictable, but not to the point where Like, I was still surprised, kind of. It wasn't like a, it's that person. It was, oh, okay. Because I thought it was someone else. But then when it revealed that it was this person, I was like, oh, okay, well, I mean, I'm surprised, but I'm not that surprised, you know?
We'll get into that probably here in a minute.
We're about at the spoiler mark. Let's go ahead and just, for people that don't want spoilers, let's go ahead and give our rating on a scale of 1 to 10. What would you rate this movie?
Compared to, like, other Pixar movies or any movie ever?
I guess either, really.
Probably a 7.
You give it a 7?
Good 7. It's not... It's up there with the original. I mean, there will always be the first movie will always have a special place, you know, obviously.
Yeah.
But it honestly, it does really well. The plot's good. Maybe the only complaint I would have would be the kind of the villain seemed kind of thrown together quick.
Yeah.
Other than that, honestly, no real complaints. The really good movie, funny, good fight scenes, all around, almost worth the wait.
I think on my rating scale, I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I'm not going to give it anything much higher. Maybe an 8.5 if I don't nitpick. Like, if I just, like, as a general, it's like, oh, yeah, 8.5. But, like, it's a good movie. It's not better than the original, but there very rarely is anything better than the first one.
The only movie I can think of like that as far as cartoons go is Toy Story 2.
Yeah, I mean, and it's even then, it's
and that's
like
close.
On par.
Yeah.
It's like neck and neck. But this movie could have been... this movie was good enough that if it could have stood alone, and it would have been good.
Yeah, minus the 5 minutes at the 5-10 minutes at the beginning, it could have been its own standalone film.
Yeah.
And had no problems watching and enjoying it, for sure.
Yeah. All right, we're going to go ahead and get into spoiler territory. So if you don't want it spoiled for you, we're going to give you about 5 seconds maybe to click off the video. Here we go.
The Pars die.
Not correct. We're going to go ahead and give you the new 5-second counter. Ready? Here we go. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get to the spoilers. So the Underminer wasn't the villain. I was hoping he would be a little bit more important of a villain, but he was kind of just there to set up the whole supers are bad plot.
And I know we've already talked about this, but I'll bring it up again for the video. I was very upset with the buildup of it. That was one of my small nitpicks as far as the villains go, because he had this long speech at the beginning, or the end of the last film, beginning of this film. You could hear it in the background, the same speech being echoed. And then he's talking about how he's going to undermine society, bring you all underground, blah blah blah, all that. And he does all that to rob one bank.
Yeah.
Like, he causes some explosions everywhere in the city, but the only thing you see go underground is one bank, and he robs it. And essentially, the sequence causes the family tries to stop
the big drill.
Stop the big drill from going through town. Frozone's doing his little bit where 90% of Frozone's character is slowing down very big objects with his ice. It never works. Bob gets run over by the thing and just shakes it off. So there's some cool sequences in there. You have like the Parr family going back and forth playing hot potato with Jack, which I thought was kind of clever, including that. It's just showing kind of like you were saying, all the damages throughout the city trying to save the day.
Yeah, and like the Underminer was only there to set up the whole supers are bad because of X type of thing,
which kind of goes into the plot of the movie.
Yeah. Like the Underminer is like, it's bad the way they played him off, but he was necessary to begin the plot of this movie.
And he robs the bank, gets away, and never seen again in the movie.
Yeah, he's just doing something.
Yeah.
So Saul Goodman decides to
Saul Goodman playing
get the heroes all together and propose a relaunching of the heroes, and his plan to get heroes back into society.
Winston Dever of DevCorp.
Yeah.
Yeah, the character.
For those of you who don't know who Saul Goodman is because you didn't watch Breaking Bad.
Bob Odenkirk. Odenkirk.
Yeah.
Ugh, can't speak.
So his plan is his sister is the developer of these of the company, and she's made like tiny cameras that can be embedded to people's suits that also have really good quality, so people can like see it clearer. And the reason heroes were banned in society was because people never saw the fight go on. They only saw the end results. They saw the damage.
I thought the whole speech on perspective was a very well done part of it. That was one.
It's
of my
a very
favorite
well
parts of the
thought
movie.
out thing.
They said because all you see destruction, you see the giant drill, then you see cops arresting a bunch of superheroes at the end of the day. But their whole thing on perspective was, if we have this small camera, which they were able to embed in their suits, they were saying, they can see the perspective of what you were dealing with, how, like, the people you were saving, what you were doing along the way, and they're not just seeing the destruction and then you.
Yeah, and they're seeing the scale and the problems you have to deal with, which is a very unique take on it. I haven't really ever seen that take on it. And their idea also to have Elastigirl be the main face of the rebranding program was a smart decision, because while you would put Mr. Incredible in that, like, on the, like, he's the strongest hero, but
Sheer popularity.
yeah, he's the strongest, but he's also like the most destructive.
And
Elastigirl can get the job done, and she can get it done cleanly.
That's another way they explain it well. They talk about they pull up a charts, which I told you I would have loved like a whole that scene to be even longer, where they talk about the cost benefit of their superheroing, so to say.
Yeah.
To where Mr. Incredible and Frozone, because of the nature of their powers, cause more destruction than someone like Elastigirl. So they go with her not necessarily because she's the better hero, but because she's one that's more marketable to the public because of that.
Yeah, and like
It's a very realistic take on it, honestly.
He was talking about how, like, we have insurance to take care of stuff, but let's not test the whole insurance will pay for everything theory just yet. We can take care of that once supers are legal again.
Yeah. So they test it out with Elastigirl, which obviously Bob Parr,
not very happy about,
obviously upset about it, but
Mr. Incredible, he can do anything. And he is not happy that he's not the one running the show.
And it doesn't harp on that too much. I noticed in the movie, I was expecting more of the jealousy to be a factor in the movie, but it's maybe only... It takes backstage to his parenting.
You get to see...
Because he very quickly...
He does feel the jealousy, and you can see he feels the jealousy, but he gets over it very quickly because he realizes that he's got other responsibilities. Like, being a hero is not the only thing he has. He has to be a parent, and he has to do this because if he does this, then Helen can go do the hero thing
and
make it legal, and then they can take turns parenting. Because since they'll both have the same job, and their kids are going to be supers too, so their kids can help them. So they can parent and do hero work at the same time.
And that's another thing. His whole reasoning wasn't just selfish either, Mr. Incredible. He wanted a better world for the kids. Because since they were supers, because he's like, well, they're supers. How are they going to be able to live a normal life? It will become a problem at some point, essentially.
And it's not fair to them that they have to hide what they are because of a law that restricts them from being who they are. It's kind of like almost like an X-Men type of thing from like the world in Logan, where like they've hunted down mutants and essentially killed them all off and stuff like that. It's like that, but not as extreme as that. Like, supers are having to keep their identity hidden.
And they were shutting down the relocation program, too, so they weren't giving the supers any help anymore. That was another big plot point at the beginning. So, the guy's name, the CIA-type dude.
Dicker.
Dicker, Agent Dicker. He his department, the superhero relocation company from the beginning that had the funny moment at the insurance job of the first movie.
Yeah.
They were being shut down, so they weren't able to give the PARS help anymore. So that's why this had to work, the DevCorp thing, because otherwise they were just on their own with no
And they were
jobs.
going to be homeless too.
Yeah, they had 2 weeks and they were being kicked out of the motel they had put them up at.
Yeah. Without spoiling the identity of the villain, it was... I didn't like the motivation.
Are you doing full spoilers?
No, I'm not doing full spoilers. I don't want to...
Because I don't want people to one complaint, I'd really like to delve into the villain a little more.
Well, I'm going to delve into it a little bit more. Mind control is just kind of the default thing that villains do.
So essentially the villain, Screenslaver, uses TV, screen, stuff like that to mind control different people throughout the movie.
Yeah.
And there's different ways it does it. At one point it's a train operator. At another point it's someone flying a helicopter. Different people using screens in different situations. It's basically saying that people have become so lazy, so out of their own world, own reality, so willing to reject their own reality. And it kind of uses the TV and the basically screens in general as an simile to superheroes.
Yeah.
Because it says, it compares it to, we want to be out of our own reality so bad that we look up to these superheroes.
You don't talk, you watch talk shows.
Yeah.
You don't play games, you watch game shows. You're so just out of your own reality because you want life to be easy, and superheroes are another one of those ease moments.
Mm-hmm.
And
sorry, go on.
Mind control is just always the default motivation for villain, or like the default tool of villains. Like, if you notice, a lot of villains build devices that allows them to take over the minds of the masses and stuff like that.
Which they had put I'm sure that's been done before, I'm sure. But
I'm fairly confident.
They put their own kind of spin on it, though, with the whole...
It's hypnosis. It's not like a technology
that
just manipulates brainwaves.
It's
actual hypnosis.
And they have a bit of a misdirection with the villain, but at that point, it's kind of obvious because it's only midway through the movie.
There's one character that just has like supervillain eyeliner, and you're just like, that's it. That's the villain. And it's just, you know who I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. You know who I'm talking about. And I'm gonna go ahead and be honest. Midway through the movie, I don't know what it was that triggered it, but I genuinely thought every single super other than the Incredibles and Frozone was dead. I thought that every super had been hunted down by Syndrome and killed.
Just the high-end ones, I think.
It was the old world heroes. It wasn't... You notice that all of the heroes in the movie that they introduced, none of them were like classic heroes. None of them were old retired heroes. They were all like a new generation that were hiding, with the exception of that one frog-looking dude.
What he's talking about essentially in the movie at DevCorp, the overarching goal of DevCorp is to make superheroes legal again. So they bring out, for part of to parade around in front of all the press people and people voting, are heroes who have been in hiding over the past 15 years. Some of them actually have really interesting powers.
Like Void?
Void, who kind of took center stage for that group of the, I guess you'd call them heroes in hiding.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call them.
She was the poster child for the New Age heroes.
But she could basically create a void in space and time.
Think more of the portal gun.
Yeah.
She was a portal gun.
It made for some really cool fights.
Because there wasn't like a setup. She could just do it instantly. Like, it was almost like second nature to her to do it. And her one thing is she lacked confidence. And if you saw her confident, she'd be a really hard person to fight. She could beat you pretty easily. I think she gave Elastigirl a really hard time during the movie, especially with her lack of confidence, because there's a scene where Elastigirl is having to get on a plane, but she needs Void's power. But Void, she's not very confident with herself, and so she keeps messing up and like slamming Elastigirl into the plane.
It goes on for almost 2 full minutes of just her trying to get her powers to work right to get Elastigirl up on this plane,
because she's not confident with herself.
It was a rather interesting scene.
Another hero I really liked, as stupid as he was, Crush.
He can crush which that was one of the powers I was like, I would love to delve into and go into more if they would have like
given him more time.
Essentially,
like he crushed the hallway, and Mr. Incredible was like, "Hey, can you like do something about this?" And he's like, "You want me to uncrush?" It's like, "Yeah, can't." He's like, "No, I can't uncrush. Why would I uncrush?"
He's like, "Can you unpunch?
Can you unpunch someone? What do you do about that?"
Yeah, he's just so upset. But it's such a good power. There's a scene later on, which we'll get into with the mind control stuff. He's crushing down Violet's portal and almost crushes and kills the children before being stopped by Frozone. I believe it was Frozone.
Yeah. Well, it was Frozone and the Incredibile, if you remember.
Yeah, okay, it was the Incredibile. That's what it was. Not Frozone, it was the Incredibile. Frozone had already gotten taken.
Which that is the coolest car in existence.
Yeah, Incredibile.
I want to see a death battle between the Batmobile and the Incredibile. Not Mr. Incredible or Batman. Just the two cars. I want to see them like do a Herbie style fight where both the cars gain sentience and try to fight each other to the death. I think that would be cool. Although if it was going up against the Dark Knight Batmobile, it would probably be destroyed instantly, because that thing is a tank, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dark Knight, yeah.
Yeah, it's a tank. What other? Let's talk about something you liked about the movie and something you didn't like about the movie.
I thought the I don't know if cinematography was a lot better in this one as far as some of the fight scenes.
Yeah.
There's a really pretty fight scene between Violet and Void where neither of them are super good with their powers, but like there's stuff in there I didn't know Violet could do from the last movie. She
can throw
her force field to slam Void against a wall. Void drops her from the ground through another void. Violet stops herself from going through it again with her force. It's just causes.
I thought you were talking about like the beginning scene where she throws the force field to like cut the rocks in half as they're about to.
Oh, that happened too. Yeah,
that was awesome.
But I was talking more that. Ooh, I was talking. I love the fight scene between Void and Violet. Just lots of really pretty fight moves. Honestly, any of the scenes with Void in it had some really cool fights. There's one where she
was really cool.
She throws Mrs. Incredible's punch through like 5 voids and makes it hit herself at one point.
Yeah,
while being mind controlled.
Cool. I don't think I liked the design of her outfit very much,
but like her power, like her fight scene's really cool. And then like you were saying, that very first fight scene, not even fight scene, the whole drill stop mission that started the show where you're stopping
the way they
drill.
Stopped it was really smart. That instead of like overpowering it or blowing it up, just pull out the fuel source
and make it stop, and then Frozone using his snow to lessen the impact of the area.
To lift it up.
Yeah.
So like gravity does the work, and like it can't go up; it'll just stop.
If I had to pick complaints, I do have some, but it's all very, very minimal. The villain was kind of weak. I didn't like the motive for the villain in this one, because essentially at the end, the villain's plan works.
Yeah.
At the end, in a way, except for one piece of the plan, which is the ending scene is very predictable, because throughout the show they're trying to get all these world leaders on this boat to sign this Heroes Accord or whatever they called it. To make heroes legal again.
Yeah, it was like a summit.
In this boat, and it's like, wow, all the world's leaders and superheroes in a boat, what could go wrong? But in the Screenslaver sends off this message to the world through a news and mind control, all this basically saying the heroes are like, hey, we're bad guys, now that we're legal, we're gonna make people pay for 15 years of punishment or 15 years of hiding, essentially. And that message went across. Like they stopped the mind control after that, and the people on the boat didn't die. But To me, they kind of rushed the ending. They're just like, oh, well, they saved the boat, so everyone's just okay with it. Everyone understands that was fake. Or I felt like could have been a little more explained, because her plan worked. When it comes down to it, the screensaver's plan worked, and there was really nothing came from it.
Yeah.
If you get what I'm saying.
I get what you're saying.
Other than that, like I said, that's a very minimal complaint, though, compared to, like, because the build-up for it was really good. I like the concept of it. Fight scenes really pretty. If I had to pick one thing to maybe that stopped it from being a perfect movie, would be the villain.
Yeah. Something I really liked about this movie that I don't like, they kind of did it in the first movie, but not as much as they did in this movie, is how in tune the people are with their powers. Using their powers a certain way is like almost second nature. It's like, it's as simple as breathing. Like when Elastigirl splits her bike in half and like uses it as like a launch pad to jump from building to building or jump really over traffic. Or if she's like going through a narrow tunnel, she like splits it in half and like is driving on the sides of the tunnel and just using her body to
the Elastabike caught made for one of the coolest scenes in the movie.
Yeah, or
well.
like Violet using her force field to throw it.
That was so cool.
Dash did it whenever he learned he could run across water, but that was in the first movie. Dash didn't get as much screen time in this one. He wasn't as important.
Dash had a lot more screen time in the last movie, I feel like. Kind of like, same with Mr. Incredible. He didn't really have a lot of fight scenes when you think about it.
Yeah.
He had the fight on the boat and at the beginning failing to stop the drill. Other than that, like, Miss Elastigirl kind of took center stage. But
I did like how in tune they were with their powers. That like it's as second nature as breathing to them. Mm-hmm. If I was gonna pick one complaint about the movie, though, and it's a very, very minor one, it would be that Jack doesn't feel like a real baby.
I knew you were gonna go there.
He's like 1 year old.
They give him a little too much of a personality
and a little too much intellect for a 1 year old child. And I guess you could use the argument of his powers are still developing. He has multiple powers, and we can't rule out heightened intelligence as one of the powers. But he's still a baby. You know.
And like, it's just for
he's like what, 1 or 2 years old?
He's 1, it says. I think most of it's just used for comedic relief, honestly, so it's not like it ruins the movie like you were saying.
Yeah, it's one of those nitpicky things. Jack didn't feel like
Jack never saves the day at any point, I don't think, other than I think he knocks off the Elastigirl's mind control glasses.
Except for when he defeats an evil raccoon from stealing the trash.
There's a hilarious, probably like 10-minute long scene.
I wouldn't say 10 minutes, like maybe 5. Maybe a 5 minute. It was a long fight.
It took a lot of screen time, but it was
one of those top 10 anime battles.
I leaned over to Dale in the middle of the theater and said top 10 anime battles. Yeah, it was Jack versus a raccoon. He's watching TV. Mr. Incredible is asleep on the couch because he's tired from, taking care of the kids all day. And there's a burglar on the TV, and he sees a raccoon stealing from their trash can with, the black over his eyes that looks like a burglar mask. And he's like, oh, that's a burglar, the 1-year-old. And goes and morphs through the wall of the door and just starts, like, attacking this raccoon and, like, uses all his powers. It makes for a really funny scene. One of my favorites in the movie by far.
But if I was gonna nitpick, that would be the thing I would nitpick, is how unreal the baby is. But at the same time, it's an animated movie, and it's just a parody on superheroes. So like I can forgive it because it's a movie. It's not like, gonna have like super realism.
You'd rather it be like that than them just carrying around a motionless baby the whole time that just kind of cries and doesn't do much else.
Yeah, and doesn't do anything. And for the dynamic of the family to work, the baby is kind of a crucial key part of the family.
Definitely, because that's a major point that, because the baby was being babysitted in the last movie, doesn't get touched on. But this movie, throughout the whole movie, that's like a plot point. Is like one of them's always having to watch the baby, and they're always trying to hand it off.
And then when they eventually learn that the baby has powers, like, no one needs to babysit Jack. Jack's capable of taking care of himself.
The very end of the movie, Violet volunteers. She's like, "Hey, I'll watch the baby," and it's supposed to be like, "Hey, she's taking ownership," or
So, our previous rating still stands. There's nothing else I can think of that we need to talk about other than the animated short at the beginning, which was very weird, very strange.
I thought it was sweet.
It was sweet. I almost teared up at the end.
It was symbolism.
Very symbolic. Very strange how it was executed. The first time I watched it, I was confused the entire time. But going back in the second time and rewatching it, I can see the symbolism now.
She's making this. What are those trees called? Dumplings?
Steamed dumplings.
Was it just steamed dumplings? She's making steamed dumplings, and one of the balls of dough or whatever she rolls turns into a child, basically.
A baby.
A baby. And it shows her throughout this little short taking care of this little dough baby and it growing up, and she's loving and raising it, and then it, like, starts to basically become a teenager. It's too cool for her. It runs and hangs out with other people, and then one day it leaves when she makes like all this food for it and goes and hangs out with friends, and it comes back and it has this girlfriend, and it turns out they're engaged, and he just leaves the mom and runs off, and as he's trying to leave the door, she just eats the dough.
Yeah,
that's the part that disturbed Dale.
It disturbed me a lot.
Just picks up and eats it.
I remember telling Jacob that what the animated short was trying to show us was the egg, larva, pupa, adult cycle of a... is she Chinese, Korean?
I think it was Chinese. I could be wrong, though.
It's just the adult stages of being Korean. You go from being a dumpling ball to an adult in several years.
And then you find out, you see a picture on the wall, and it's a child that looks like the dough look, basically. So the dough is symbolism for a kid, and the kid comes back by the house and to apologize for just kind of leaving the mother, and then it ends with the kid and his now wife trying to make dumpling balls with the mother, and it's really sweet. But it's just kind of supposed to be a symbolism for parenting and how you put all this into your kids, and they just run off and leave you, I guess.
Now that I think about it, I gotta call my mom. Tell her how much I love her.
But yeah, it's
before I can't.
But it was I liked the little short at the beginning.
Sorry, I'm sad now. I was thinking about the meaning of that short. I'm sad now. I think we're gonna go ahead and cut the podcast. Is there anything else you can think about, Jacob?
Good movie. I think it will probably... I definitely think it'll overtake Finding Dory 2 for best opening weekend for an animated.
Now, let me go ahead and ask you this before we end. Theater or Redbox?
Oh, in theater, for sure.
For sure?
Oh, yeah, definitely. It's Incredibles, man. I mean, any Pixar movie is worth seeing in the theaters just because of the Pixar label on it, aside from maybe Cars 3. But... And plus, it being Incredibles such a long way, and it ended up being really good, definitely worth seeing in theaters.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. My name is Dale.
I'm Jacob.
And y'all have a good night.